Hey, welcome back. This knife has been occupying my conscience a lot this past week. I was able to find a few more on the secondary market, and it was very difficult. Like, I spent a lot of time on it, probably more than it's worth. I probably should have just paid the big money and given everyone exactly what they're asking, and I probably would have saved money in terms of my time. But you know, there's a little bit of a game to shopping for knives too. But this is the Brown FSD, and it's been on my mind because it's really, really good. Like, I spent a lot of time the last few months on Demcos because I think they're really, really good. This is a Demco 8020S. This particular one's a shark's foot. Here's a full-size 8020. This particular one is a no slot, if I can open it. And as you can see, I'm very much into titanium milled pattern handles. The Brown, I think, does a phenomenal job of it. I don't think it's any better or worse than the Demco 8020S or 8020. I think it is better than the 8020.5, which, as you can maybe even hear there, is a little more abrasive. This is a little smoother. I think, and I did learn to front flip it a little bit offline there. So excited to start to deploy it that way a little more. I think the fit and finish is second to none. I love what he's done on the pocket clip and getting the Blaine WA USA. If you're a watcher, you know I live in Bellingham, Washington, about 30 minutes from where these are getting made. And yeah, the fit and finish is phenomenal. The sound is cool. The action's awesome. The button's really good. It's not much better on the button than the CGRB Pyrite. I've done a lot of videos, including the CGRB Pyrite. I think it's phenomenal. It's a little clickier when you hit the button, but not a lot. I just think this is a phenomenal knife. And anyone that doesn't have this in their collection, like if you're anti-China knives, then that's one thing. But if you're open to knives from China for $50, I don't know how they haven't raised the price on this. I guess it's MSRP 66, but this is like the best button lock. I also have the Suncut Crowley here, which was, you know, considered by a lot of people to be the other, you know, one of the other best button locks in the budget price range this year. But I wouldn't say that this feel to me is as close to the Brown as the CGRB Pyrite. If you're really just looking to hold yourself over while you wait to win a Brown drop on a mini FSD, grab the CGRB Pyrite and plink around with it a little. It's pretty fun. The Demcos are much heavier, bigger knives. They are, you know, even the 8020S is going to outweigh that by at least an ounce. Let's take a quick look. But at least an ounce, I'd say. I don't know what makes it so much lighter. I think it's not like 100% slab of titanium here. I think it's like a two-piece, or it's highly milled. That's what it is. You can see it there. Couldn't really see it before, but highly milled out inside there. And then this piece is like, you can see it's not one solid piece there. So yeah, it's much lighter than the Demcos. Amazing milling work. I actually wish Demco would take this to the next level on their milling, but that's kind of their style, right, is to have more of a heavy use knife. So anyways, even this 8020S, which is considered the slim, still, you know, fairly similar blade stock thickness at the top, but they really take the it's hollow ground, and they take out so much metal. This knife just feels completely different balance wise than the Demco. It feels like a much lighter knife. 5.18 ounces versus over 7 ounces. Oh, I forgot, this is not a milled lightweight one. Let me grab a milled lightweight one. Sorry, one sec. I got one over here. I should have brought this one out. This is actually a really good comparable for this. But that's a full weight, non-milled. Then this one right here, you can see a lightweight. This particular one's not milled pattern, so it's actually a touch heavier. But you can see the, textured pattern, so it's a touch heavier. But you can see it's milled out on the inside, which takes out quite a bit of weight. The other one was over 7 ounces, and this one's 6.59 ounces. So you're getting closer, but you're still 1.5 ounces lighter on the Brown. And then, you know, CGRB pyrite, steel, but also milled, 3.74 ounces. Another one I brought out here that was kind of an interesting, like, hey, this might hold you over in the meantime. It's a very different knife, but the F5.5 from Urban EDC, I don't know if they're sold out of these now, but they had quite a few of them. But this is another nice little titanium fidgety knife. That guy weighs in 4.4 ounces. I got a bunch of knives here that we're going to, you know, talk about what could hold you over until you land your Brown, because it's very hard to get one of these unless you want to pay the piper. And I've been talking with some other knife enthusiasts lately. Quite a few of us are quite content to pay the piper. And I don't mean quite content like we're happy to do it, but we're doing it. Secondary market, paying what we got to pay to get them. Like, am I saying go pay $2,000? No, hell no. Don't pay $2,000 for this knife. But, you know, they're $810 if you get it on the drop. The amount of stress that goes into the drop is insane. Like, it's a big waste of time for most of us, right? If you're one of the 20 people that get it, that's awesome. But the other 200 or 2,000, I don't know how many people are trying to get them. You know, it's a lot of stress. So if you think about it, you know, paying $1,100, $1,200 on the secondary market, it's not that crazy. It's a markup for sure, but is the knife worth it? Well, it's not 22 times better than this. I can say that straight away. It's not that much better, but if you're more of a collector and or you just want to have it because that makes you happy, then hell yeah, it's worth $1,100 or $1,200. Is it just technically worth that? No. In fact, on my mind has been how Demco has outsourced to Taiwan their 80-20.5, and for $375 you can pick this up. Whereas, you know, this is $625 if you can get it at an event. This is $625, and on the secondary you're talking like probably $850 and probably $1,000 to $1,500 depending on which pattern and blade steel and condition you get. So, you know, this is kind of how it is, right? Like these smaller manufacturers that have limited production, you're gonna have to pay the piper to play the game. I'm gonna lay some of these out here. Some alternatives that have kind of come to mind. Cool, fun, beautiful, fidgety knives, things that check those boxes in order to, you know, buy you some time until you get your Brown. From just like a knife perspective, I mentioned the hollow ground. That's really impressive. It didn't come with like an amazing edge. It actually really needs to be sharpened on a lot of it. This right here is completely dull. And this one was sold to me on the secondary market, but it was said to be new in box. So, and you know, I believe the seller seems awesome. First of all, appreciate it that he sold it to me. This is the full size, by the way. I have a mini coming and another pattern on a full size, so I'm so stoked. Like I said, I was burning the midnight oil trying to find more of these after getting this one in hand. I was just like, holy shit, I love this knife. As a collector, it's one of my favorite knives I've ever happened across. Do I think it's perfect in every way? No, it's not. Don't like go spend all your savings on it. Again, it's not 22 times better than the CGRB pyrite. This pyrite is freaking awesome. It's an awesome, awesome knife. In fact, the ARPM9 blade steel on this, I can't now remember if this is CPM 154 or 154 CM. Hang on one sec. If it's 154 CM, it's not that different. CPM 154 you give like a slight edge to, but okay, CPM 154, so that's good. But I mean, you're not, that's categorically, they're both powder formed, Like, this is a really nice knife for $50. I constantly like consider buying more of these just because I'm just like, God, I love this knife. In fact, the only thing I don't really love about it is the it can maybe have a tad more detent. No, it's pretty freaking spot on. Maybe a touch more detent. That may be something I could even tune. I don't know. But the pocket clip just feels a little cheap, so I'm gonna look for an aftermarket pocket clip. But I love, like, this is finally starting to displace my Grivery Demco 8020.5 in my pocket once in a while. It's the first knife in a while that's had that value and overall feel and fun and fidgetiness that like I appreciate out of this knife. Like, I don't mind sharpening this knife. I use it. I drop it sometimes. Like, I just upgraded the pocket clip and called it good. Upgraded is probably not the right term, but I switched out the pocket clip to a deep carry clip. This thing's pretty similar. So this has been on my mind a lot. Now, this is, again, probably the most similar to the Brown that you can get in a lot of ways. No, that's probably not true. There's probably some button locks out there, like a Malibu or something like that. Or now Les George just came out with a really nice button lock. That'd probably be competitive to the Brown. So take a look for those. But these are hard to come by. There's only a handful of drop point, lightweight titanium knives out there. They're really hard to come by from Demco. I don't know if they're going to do something about that, but this is the only one in my collection that feels like a really direct comparable to that in terms of weight, feel, being a drop point. Now, if you're good with a shark foot or a sheep foot, highly recommend trying to find one of these, especially if you can find one in a lightweight. That is a really fantastic knife. That's just highly recommendable. In the slab, you know, if you want a chunk of steel, this is phenomenal. I don't know if it's as good of it's a really cool collector knife. I don't know if it's as good of an EDC, but for some people, that's what they want. They want substantial, something that feels tough. And this is this 8020S in the full weight titanium is pretty awesome also for that, you know, kind of buyer. Another budget one that came to mind for me, and it's not titanium, and I don't know, they may make it in titanium, but I'm not as familiar with this brand, is the Giant Mouse Ace Grand. It's a little light on the detent I found, but aside from that, this is an awesome knife. Really nice. I have not used this one much, so it's not drop shut yet, but I'm pretty sure this would be a knife that would become drop shut with use. It's a really cool blade shape, knocked down nicely here. Got some jimping right where it counts. The feel in hand, the size is actually quite similar to the Brown. Let's see if I can lay these out in a way where you can tell. Woo. Very similar in size. The Brown's a little bigger. Brown's a big knife. I don't think the pictures don't really show how big the Brown is. It's a big freaking knife. But that Ace Grand is like right in there. Let's see if we can get all three of these on here. Let's move this guy out of the way so it looks a little better. Those are really similar in size. I don't know if Craig Brown looked at what Demco was doing at all from a sizing perspective when he made this knife. Obviously, these came out first, but it is obviously a very popular knife and has been in extreme demand. And he did well, I think, by making a very similar size. Now he's come out with the Mini, and that would be much more similar to the 8020.5 from Demco. Which is a little smaller even than the Ace Grand here. But that'd be another, you know, for $375 MSRP. This knife to me, I mean, it's a little flat feeling and a little small. Like, I'm not a big fan of how that 8020.5 feels in hand. It's just a little flat feeling to me. You don't really feel that with the 8020S. It's a little, it's big enough and it's knocked down enough around the edges that it just doesn't feel as flat. It certainly is still completely flat. There's no concave to but just like the Brown doesn't have any concave to it either, but it doesn't feel flat. It's just, they're both nicely knocked down around the edges. And at that size, it doesn't feel as flat in your hand as it is. The Ace actually does have some concave in the scale, and that's a big part of why it feels so good. What I don't like about pretty much every giant mouse is this little section right here always feels a little sharp, a little hot spotty to me. Now, if you're choked up, you're not really in there anyways, but when you're in that spot, if you got big hands like me, you're gonna be in it. You're not gonna, I mean, I can kind of stuff my fingers in above it, but if you're in it, it does feel a little hot spotty to me. You don't have to be, as you can see, I can kind of stuff my hands in there, but anyways. Another, let's pull out a few more here I thought of. So basically this whole premise of this video is, say you can't find a Brown, what do you do? And there are quite a few knives I don't have, right? I buy my knives, so I don't have everything here. Can't afford it. The Microtech is a really great alternative. Really, really great alternative here that very similar in that, and I don't know why I suddenly can't, I was probably lock sticking myself there. It is a frame lock is the big drawback of this knife. So that's probably what I was doing, was I was lock sticking myself. But it also has, a large fuller for deployment. I think this is a hollow grind. I think this is a flat grind. But it's just a really, really cool knife that gives you a lot of that same like feedback and feel and size and stuff. That's if you can get, now these aren't super prevalent either, but they're easier to get your hands on by a lawn shot, and they're what, $450 or $500 versus $800 something. Bear with me, just one sec here. I just gotta turn off an alarm. Sorry about that. Really good alternative, and you can get these full tie, by the way. I've just started to see some of them around where it's a full tie frame, which is cool. Another one, the Devo Stout, $299. Really fun and fidgety knife. Titanium inset frame lock. Really nice fit and finish. Totally drop shut. And another one that, it's not a button lock, but one that I like when I think of what are some of the knives I love having in hand. These are some of the ones that I enjoy when they're in my hands. Probably a little less with the Sencut. I can't really explain that. A lot of people compare it very closely to the CGRB Pyrite, which, by the way, I found its way off the screen here. Let's get it back in here. But I personally am not a big fan of this in hand. It's one of those things where, like, if you just assess it objectively, you can't really knock it. It does most things that the CGRB does, but it's just not quite as satisfying. I don't know if it's the micarta. You can definitely get the CGRB in G10 as well, by the way, but I don't know if it's that steel. That steel just feels really good, but this thing's just not, like, I wouldn't say get this to hold yourself over from that. I'd say get that. If this is the feel you're going for, this really isn't it for me. So maybe I'll even just take that one out of here. Just because you're a button lock doesn't mean you get to be in here. Did I put anything else out? One of the other things you can do, which is I think a great option, is you can buy another Brown. You can buy like a Cortex or an LHC, and they're going for great prices right now. Most people will sell them for at or below the price of what they cost new from Brown, which was very hard to get when they were coming out. You were having to get them on the drops, but you can get these now for a very reasonable price. And that could be a really good alternative for you, just to get your hands on something from Brown. They have the same brilliant drop sheddiness. There's a lot to like about this knife. Look at that. Amazing. And you can get these for, I mean, you could probably get a user for $500 or something like that, but you can get them for $700, $800, $900, no problem. You know, if you get one of the ones with the crazy finish, like I got one with the Damasteel blade, you're gonna be paying over $1,000 still. So there are some high-end versions of this LHC and the Cortex that are even more expensive than the FSD. The FSD, I think his whole intention was to show you could make something not as custom, that was more repeatable and higher volume. I don't know if the volume has been higher. I actually don't really know what the drop date was on these when it started. I have to go look at his website and see, to see how many he's producing versus what he was doing on like the LHC and the Cortex. Let me pull out a Cortex too here as a comparable. Oops, this is another LHC. And but yeah, go on the Brown fan page on Facebook if you're looking for these. I think you get more of them there than most places. You can certainly find some on Blade forums and Reddit and stuff. Check out that Cortex pocket clip. Super duper duper cool. Love that. This, by the way, is probably the most gentle flip I've ever felt on a knife. Like, it is so gentle, for lack of a better description. It's just so easy. An amazing fit and finish. If you saw the video I did on these, which as I'm doing this video is not yet posted, I had a lot of nice things to say about the Cortex, and this is a matching pair that I got from a gentleman that originally landed the Cortex and I think had the LHC to match, made to match, which is pretty cool. But those are some really good alternatives, and then you can get your hands on something from Brown. So that's what I did first until I could find this one. I just bought some LHCs and Cortexes and kind of got into Brown, got a feel for what he was doing, and yeah, those are not terrible right now. I think everyone's so fixated on the FSD and the mini FSD that those have, I don't want to say come down. Like, if you get the right model, Timascus and everything, I'm sure people are still, you know, above what they cost, you know, at the drops. I don't want to make it sound like these are cheap, but for the most part, you can buy them for about what they dropped at. Just on average, these can be had for what they were sold for on drop price, which is on average probably $850. So not so different. You can see there's a lot. You could see why there might be a lot more work. I'm not so sure, not 100% sure, but you could see why there might be a lot more work put into something like this versus something like this. I'm not going to say this is simpler, because that would not be the right term for it. Super cool how you can just button it out like that too. But it feels a lot more, I don't want to say mass production, but like, you're not seeing as much variation. You are seeing some interesting anodized and different milling patterns and stuff on these, but if you go look up the archives on the Cortex and LHC, they're much more diverse so far than the FSD has been. So, you know, another great alternative made in the USA for $300, Tactile Magna Cut, Tactile Knife Company. This is a much smaller knife, so it'd be more comparable to the mini FSD, but it's still a lot smaller than the mini FSD. But very satisfying on deployment. It is very small. You have to kind of get used to the cramped feel of it. But man, once yours gets broken in like this one, it is really, really a little sweetie. This thing is just very nice to deploy now. Like when I first got it, I don't think I could roll it out like that. It's definitely a perfectly imperfect knife. I see a lot of people that just do not like this knife. A lot of them resell. You can get these on the secondary market for crazy prices, $200 to $250 for a knife that's brand new. You know, that, you know, Magna Cut, it's not going to take a lot of wear. People try them out for a month or two and resell them for, you know, quite a bit less. So some of them, some of the patterns, like the monkey edge pattern and stuff, In fact, I'll bring out the monkey edge pattern because it's so similar to that. Some of those, you know, will actually sell for more than retail if they're very limited, but in general, those are pretty easy to have for either just buy it brand new or for a reasonable secondary price at below the MSRP. Where's my monkey edge here? Didn't expect to take this one out during the video here. Oh, the Dragon Skill is also a really good comparable. This one's from Knife Joy, and it's top 3, my top 3 favorite for sure. Check that out. That's a really good comparable finish to the Brown, actually. In fact, this is probably the finish. The monkey edge is probably a little closer. But that one's awesome. Knife Joy is also a great company to work with. Really good on service. So very recommendable. Let's put this back and let's find that monkey edge because I feel like that's a really good comparable knife. No, that's not it. Where is it? That's not it. It has flown the coop. There he is, monkey edge frag pattern. This is probably one of the most similar in my collection in terms of finish titanium to the Brown. So if you're just looking for a finish, yeah, that's the one that feels the most like it. More than the Demco. It's right between these two. Like this one's probably a little, yeah, these are very similar, very, very similar. And this one also just has awesome action. So if you can find a monkey edge frag pattern version of the Tactile, that's a really good holdover as well. You can see why. Let's put this up here at the top. I'll put the Brown in the middle here. This is the knives to hold you over until you find your Brown video. But yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised by what could be had just on Browns in the secondary market for the LHC and the Cortex. I thought those were going to be really hard to come by, and I'm not saying you're going to get the exact one you want. If you go on there, the archive, and you try and find something specific, it's definitely, they're not everyone's selling theirs, right? And depending on whether someone's motivated to move one, if the pattern's the right pattern, you know, you're going to see different variation there. This, and I don't know how to pronounce the word, it's like Sigha or Seha or something like that. Patterned F5.5 is a really good option too. I feel like this is a nice knife in hand. It's a lot shorter than this one, but it's probably similar, more similar to the Mini FSD. You get M390 blade steel. You know, you get 20 CV on some of the Browns, but I don't think they've done 20 CV yet on the Mini, just on the full size. I do have a 20 CV full size coming in the mail, which is exciting. But yeah, those are all really interesting comparable knives that I feel like can help hold you over until you land your Brown. So food for thought. You know, I just wanted to throw out some ideas here since I have access to so many different titanium and titanium mixed material type knives that potentially could be compared and give the feel of a Brown knife. Not the feel of a Brown knife, they are distinct, but you know, kind of give you something to get your hands on until you land one. Those are all really good options there. So some good food for thought, hopefully. This one's got a little something on it. We gotta get that off there. A little something on the pocket clip. There we go. I'm trying to see if there's anything else around here that I could throw into the pile. I mean, Hinderers are a lot easier to get. I've actually landed a couple of these on the DLT. That's actually, I thought I'd never bought a knife on like on a drop, but I do realize I did get my two little 3-inch no choil hinderers on the drop, but that's a lot different. That doesn't sell out in, you know, 5 minutes or whatever like a lot of the knives do. Oh yeah, I realized I can't reverse flick these for some reason. There we go. The hinder is not a terrible option. It's certainly a lot different than the Brown, but it's one of those knives that does have amazing action and, you know, might hold you over. Here's one that's really worn in. Might hold you over if you can figure out how to deploy it. That's a lot like Brown drop sheddiness, actually. I think that's a bit all for now. It's a half hour of me ranting and raving and comparing and stuff, so we can probably call it. But food for thought. Hope this was helpful. Please like, subscribe. Let me know if you have another knife that you'd suggest. I'm sure there are a bunch out there. I didn't want to talk about knives that I don't have in the collection too much on this video. There's certainly some others that have been coming to mind as I've gone through this, like the ProTech Malibu and some others. But yeah, this is some that I have that I could show that you might consider. So hope that helps, and we will see you on the next one. Take care.